Welcome back.
Been a, been a while. I'm in a very pink room today. I actually brought a coffee this time. Sometimes I don't bring my coffee to the
To the
the,
Builder's
the
Coffee.
coffee. Yeah, the builder's
It's
coffee, but
1:30 on the East Coast, so I
a little late for
oftentimes
you,
fake the coffee. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I allow
On the tea.
now that I'm an old man, I only allow myself caffeine before noon. But it's 11:30 here, so I can
And I've
squeeze
been
in
cutting back
one
even
more.
on the I used to be like every day 2 cups, and now some days I'm like, I'm just trying to stick at one, Don't want to,
Good for you.
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
probably I'm probably 4, 5, 6. I don't know, but
it's all phase in life, right? It's like you
yeah.
have these phases where I mean, certainly when baby number three was born, all of my discipline went out the window. It was like I was
Yeah.
drinking coffee all day, every day. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Uh,
We did switch to half calf. I don't know if that makes any real difference, but we were like, somebody I can only imagine like some marketer or somebody at like Starbucks was noticing there were like weirdos like us who seem to be buying like identical numbers of like normal coffee and decaf, and then we had a little thing we would just like mix them sort of, and then they came out with like half calf. I'm like, sweet. So now we just get like half calf. I said, I just kind of the oral thing about having a thing in my hand while I'm working. I feel like it makes me productive. You could probably switch this to decaf, and I don't know if I would even really notice, but
just
that at
hot
least,
water, you need
yeah,
the cup. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I mean, it really is. It's the rhythm of sip, type. Yeah, you otherwise.
yeah.
Well, cool. Well, you feel like you understand loops now, so I'm gonna let you
Oh,
let you
well, it
explain
might be
them.
a stretch. Yeah, loops. What the heck is a loop? It's funny how like, na naming. I guess maybe it's just because we're in such a new area where nothing
Yeah.
has really been figured out. But the naming in AI is always just very confusing. You probably remember the days when Simon Willinson was like tracking all the various like definitions that people were using for agent, and there was like no like all over the place. Now at least I think we kind of know what an agent is.
Sure.
And now it's like we must move on to the new confusing thing, loops. And everyone's talking about loops. Um, so maybe I'll pull up a slide. I don't claim to know what they are, but I was a little bummed I didn't actually fly out for the AI Eng World's Fair this year. I went to the last two, but I did watch some of it virtually. And so Swix, the kind of AI engineering godfather, I don't know what we should call him. He did sort of a keynote where he talked about loops because loops is a topic. Software factories was like a big theme. And I think I'll flash like a slide he had. So I think I realized sort of why it's so confusing. I think it's actually pretty terribly named, but my sense is that people started talking about loops when we started to kind of do things like this Ralph Wiggum loop, or now there's like a goal loop, or when agents finally got good enough, which wasn't that long ago. Before they were just not very good, and so you couldn't really let them run that long. And then the labs have been pushing sort of longer and longer how long they can kind of stay on track. And so then people started putting loops around them, and so Ralph Wiggum, if you don't know what that is, I've never really used it, but it was like this kind of, I don't know, kind of open source project. There was this pattern that you could kind of like run something like Claude code in this loop, and every time it would try to stop, you'd be like, no, you're not allowed to stop, like keep going. And so, I never really use this because I like to kind of see where things. I don't like really like the idea of it going off overnight, and like just like what's the code review I'm going to do in the morning. But that is like a loop, and so that's kind of where this name started. But I think loops are sort of happening at different levels. So I'll just show you like a visual. I don't know. Does this presenting thing work here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is, so this was like it's funny, like nobody really makes slides anymore. Like I don't use Google Slides. I just, when I want to make a presentation like this, I just have Claude make me like a little virtual HTML thing. So this is Swix's like little virtual slides that he did for his keynote. And what I thought was interesting is he talks about sort of like these nested loops. And so, the original LLM you can kind of think of as a loop, and this thing wasn't very smart. It's just sort of predicting tokens, but there's some kind of prediction happening there at the token level. And then you zoom out to kind of the chat loop. And so, we don't usually just call a vanilla chat like Claude or ChatGPT an agent, but in many ways it kind of is. If you give it a harder task, it's going to execute tools and reasoning, in some sort of like loop that you don't quite see until it thinks that it's kind of like met your goal just in a chat turn. So each chat turn is kind of a small loop. And then you zoom out and okay, now you've got an agent. So, I might start in a place like Conductor or Codex or Claude Code, and actually have it, it's executing like for quite a long time. The goal loop, I haven't really used this much. I'd be curious if you've used this. I think Codex started with /goal. I think Claude has it now too, but there's like sort of a way you can say, slash goal, give it a thing where you really tell it like how to meet success. Now it's going off sort of even further. Maybe this takes hours instead of minutes.
Mm.
And then automations, maybe all the way up to like software factories. So it's kind of, and so I think this is where the confusion comes in, is like there's sort of multiple nested loops, and then with like dynamic workflows, which is a pretty new feature, that's like sort of like a loop above loops. So now you're having like a top level thing, write JavaScript to orchestrate agents and map over them, and those are running loops, and so it's just sort of a naturally confusing thing in a way.
Yeah, somewhere between like 5 and 3. Like 3 makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah,
4 makes some sense to me, although I do wonder like how I would have to play a little bit more, like how many things that I'm working on actually can have a verifiable goal of some
right,
sort. But 5 and 6 feel like they're really, really hand wavy, right?
totally.
That's where I feel like it sort of falls apart for the. And I guess I assume when people are talking about loops that they're talking about like 5 and 6 and like organizing these loops. But it
Yeah, I
always
mean,
seems
even
like, a Rube Goldberg machine where,
totally.
like when we were kids, the movies, and it would be like this machine that like when the alarm goes off, it like puts the toast in and starts the coffee. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it will work one time, right? But is it going to work repeatedly? I'm not so sure.
Totally. I mean, even 4 to me, I have a hard time coming up with like day-to-day tasks where I want it to go off for hours. And
Mm.
like, if I was like migrating from, I remember one time at Dropbox for this project where it was just migrate to like Python 2.7 from,
Mm.
Python 2.6. And I think that went on for like months. But something like that where it's just like very clear. It's like quite a bit of work to do, but it's like a very clear definition of success. And there's some like, like real automated test suite that we can rely on. Okay, maybe, but most of my job, there's enough uncertainty. I want to kind of see how things go. But even 4 starts to feel like maybe the idea of loops. The problem is, of course, then that a lot of the way people talk about loops online is kind of BS and gets sort of hyped up, and it's hard to sort of fit in little tweets like what are we actually talking about here? I
Well,
did go to an
that's why we have the interest. This is the whole reason we have this podcast, is to have a real
yeah.
conversation.
We just figure yeah, is this real or is this bullshit? So I went so then I saw Anthropic had a webinar. Like, I guess I don't know, I guess because I'm just like a Claude Code user, I get emails like, hey, there's like, some webinar coming up. So I usually don't join them, but there was one about loops. And so I was like, okay, what does Anthropic think loops are? So I went to this talk, I think last week. Let's see if I have the slides open. Yeah, so this was like someone on their team saying get it started with loops. And I liked their talk was like much more pragmatic. It wasn't really about all of this 5 and 6 level thing that Swix was talking about. It's like basically they sort of just talked about these 4 patterns, kind of turn-based, goal-based, time-based, proactive. And so this you could kind of see this is a little bit like some of the ones that Swix was talking about. Goal-based is there, and then for each one they kind of went through like real examples, and this was all using Claude Code. And so what was nice is kind of what is the anatomy of a loop? What's the trigger? Is it me sort of with a prompt? Is it on an event? Is it on a timer? And a big one is like, when does it stop? So this was sort of interesting where, in the kind of turn-based loop, you're kind of just like implicitly letting Claude decide sort of, when to stop. Whereas as you go up the ladder toward like goal-based ones, you have to kind of think harder about, let's see if there's any examples. Yeah, like as you start to set more ambitious goals, what's interesting is it then becomes important to sort of also like, do you want it to run infinitely? Like what if it doesn't achieve its goal? What do you want it to do? Do you want it to give up after a certain amount of turns and ask you for input? Because as you go up the ladder, these things are also getting quite expensive. And so you want to kind of think about how to balance like, letting it do something more ambitious when should you kind of stop. But I think this is what we're talking about, is like, I don't have these multi-hour things with like very clear verifiable exit criteria. So I haven't actually used this pattern that much, but
Yeah, well, and I wonder, there's two things I wonder about this. One is how much of this is like test-driven development where
mhm,
there's a little bit of a like mental, like you can convert most projects into test-driven development, and then you
mhm.
still end up doing a little bit of like taste and touch and feeling around the outside. But if you once you start to think that way, it's a really useful way to think. So that's one thing I've been thinking about that. The other thing
Hmm.
is I wonder if this is a time where we actually have to update how we think about what types of tasks you try with LLMs. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of the confusing things about the past 4 years has been they are continually getting more capable, and you can fall into a rut. Like I think as people, we like to work in a certain, you like to have a rhythm to your
Mm-hmm.
work. You want to have the coffee in your hand, you want to sit
Mm-hmm.
down. And so it's, it's probable that we're working with, Fable the way that was optimal for Opus 4.6, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just not the same anymore. And, but it definitely does get more challenging, especially on the
Mm-hmm.
more fuzzy criteria around like, we don't actually know.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the reasons that I continue to be to think that software engineering isn't dead, because I I do think that in many scenarios there isn't, the requirements are emergent, they aren't
Mm-hmm.
known. And it's not until somebody relies on something, well, as soon as somebody
Mm-hmm.
relies on something to solve a problem for them, the requirement space has now shifted, and that will continue to
Totally.
happen forever until the end of time. And I mean, maybe AI will get fast enough that it's updating in real time, but we'll see.
Right.
I think physics will continue
Yeah.
to exist, but hot take. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, you and I guess, in an earlier, or in our careers, we were PMs, and it was never very clear what a PM was, right? Like when I dropped out of grad school, I went from math PhD to suddenly they were like, you're a product manager. I was like, what is, I don't know what a product manager is. Was kind of trying to figure out what that job was, and there's no like place that's written down very clearly, and so you get all these like little debates in the industry about what's the right metaphor. Is it the CEO of the product, or is it more like the conductor of the orchestra, or is it like the captain of the pirate ship? Like the engineers are going to throw you off if they don't like you, but you kind of know, and so I was actually always kind of skeptical whenever anybody tried to like overly formalize like frameworks for product management. I was like, might be helpful if you're kind of like trying to learn the ropes, but like so much of it is in the messy middle between like humans and intentions that aren't very clear even to the stakeholders in the room trying to figure it out. So I think, it's like now what's weird is I don't manage any people now. I'm in a 3-person startup, but like we've all kind of become managers or a little bit, or like all kind of like product managers, whether we wanted to be one or not, of people, but also agents. So it's like even messier now, and we have more leverage to, if you know where to direct it, you can like get an incredible amount done overnight. But if you are sort of unsure where you're pointing, um,
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
I think
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right. I mean,
yeah, yeah. No, I definitely. And then you also have it's always fun to me in a software project how at what point I get to the spot where I'm like, how does this part of the code actually work again? Like, so I've been working a lot
hmm
on Agent CAD, which is my um, uh, it's a CAD software tool for agents. It's designed to let them do 3D design, and it gives the agent an interface that allows it to do some cool things.
hmm
So that I have a really good idea of like the different pieces and how those different pieces work. But I'm trying to do my theory of the case here is that if you give an agent tools, the agent will be more effective than it is without tools, which is, it
hmm
seems logical, but I
hmm
want to be able to prove this.
hmm
There's an eval set called CAD Gen Bench that has some prompts, and then it has some measurements for what the 3D object should look like. And so what I want to do is I want to take like Fable or whatever. You pick your LLM without Agent CAD and with Agent CAD, and ideally Agent CAD will work better.
hmm
So I'm trying to build a little bit of scaffolding so that I can do all 81 of these things at the same time. But I'm not like super invested in like how this scaffolding works. I would prefer to not have to care how this
hmm
software program works. And
hmm
so I've gone through a couple different rounds of it. And anyway, it's not user facing. I'm the only user of it. My like standards here are significantly lower than for other stuff. But I realized today that like I have no idea how this thing works. And I'm like,
hmm
oh shoot, if I really want this to work, I have to like like dig in
Yeah.
and actually care. And the idea that that would happen on something that I'm
Yeah.
working on like effectively by myself, I've got a
hmm
couple contributors for it, but like, I mean, but that happens all the time in companies. Like in big
hmm
companies, you
Oh
end up,
yeah.
you're like, a huge part of being a product manager is like getting into the actual product and being like, you tell me that this is how this works. This is what the documentation says, but when I actually touch it, it doesn't
Yeah.
do the thing you say, right? Like I'm good, it's creating source truth anyway.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times with companies, like it's not in the docs, it's not in anyone's head. The source of truth is always the code, but that's like pretty large and complicated. And so you get these sort of like oral histories, or sometimes you have to like, sometimes in the past when I've started a new project as a PM, you almost start with like archaeology, trying to figure out like how does the current thing work and why, what past decisions led to that. I mean, like the Dropbox sharing model, that was like one of the harder things I worked on. It just sort of evolved,
So
somewhat organically in a couple over some span of time. Like they initially had the shared folder, and that was sort of on day one in Drew's video that he put on Dig. They had that concept, and that that was sort of threaded through the whole system. But then at some later point in time, a different thing to be able to just share a link to a file was kind of layered on, and those things didn't really play well together. So, but yeah, how do you? Hello.
this guy's supposed to be taking a nap or having a rest. You want to say hi? Okay.
Hi.
You can play with blocks, but you still have another hour, my buddy. Yeah. Don't tell his mom he's been on the internet.
Uh-oh. Yeah, well, I don't even really
We'll have to
think
go back. We'll have to go back and cut it.
my strategy is I just kind of don't think about that myself. I just assume I'm
Yeah.
talking to you and
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah,
comes to
Yanni.
mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
does anyone listen to this? I can't imagine they do. Um, yeah, I mean, the one thing I've noticed, I mean, you talk about sort of not understanding the code.
Yeah.
I have only recently switched. I think we've talked about this before, but until pretty recently, I've been sort of a code reviewer, like pretty strict, where I would use AI a lot, but I always put rules of like, do not stage anything in Git. That's for me. And so what I'm often doing is I might have a few working, but like whatever one I'm currently focused on, I'll be like reviewing it, sometimes skimming, sometimes like being like, wait, what's going on here? And I'm staging things in Git as I do that to kind of mean, okay, I've seen this, I'm okay with this. And I'm often pasting like feedback while it's working. I'm like, hey, fix, helping it kind of course correct. But then once it all ends up staged, I'm like, great, I've reviewed, I understand what's going on here. I can like do a PR. So that's always how I've worked so far. Only recently, I think it's really with Fable and Soul, I've started to like let go of the reins a little bit. So it's kind of for better or worse. I don't know. Like the PRs are getting much larger. Like sometimes now I'll give a change and it'll touch 50 files, 100 files, and I'm kind of like, but like the code's like just gotten a lot better. I trust it more. But then I do find like one consequence is like I just have like less of an innate understanding of how the system works then. So like I sort of come back later and I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Like who wrote this code? And I have to kind of rewrite it. So I don't know. It is a tricky thing. Like where do you in some areas I think it's important. Like I really want to understand the schema. In others, like okay, I probably don't. This is like React component code. I probably don't need to like review it that closely. It's fine.
Yeah, I am a for me the PR is where I gate. So
Mhm.
I'm totally fine to have it commit without reading it.
Mhm.
And I do manual testing on PRs as a way of ensuring that it works the way that I want it to work. But
Mhm.
I have started to spend, particularly on stuff that matters more to me, a lot more time on like what files are changing, what is the
Mhm.
architecture here, because like that is really helpful to have in my head and basically be like, what is the shape of this thing, which maps
Mhm.
on to like what I did as a product manager. It was very uncommon
Mhm.
for me to look at actual code, but it was really common for me to be like, okay, what are the different systems? How do those systems
Mhm.
work? What are those interactions? Because you want to be able to trace the chain to be able to be like, oh, this is the one that
Mhm.
sucks, right? Like this is the
Right.
one that we are asking to do three different things, and therefore it doesn't do anything well, right? Or let's simplify it down. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Are you more
Charlie.
Fable or more Soul?
I'm using both. One reason I like Conductor, like I've used Claude Code and Codex both in the past. One reason I like Conductor is how easy it is for me to switch. So whenever OpenAI or Anthropic come out with a new model, I just change the default for a few days to like because I find my I don't trust my first impressions. Whenever there's a new model, I feel like there's this like novelty bias that kicks in where I'm like, wow, it's like so smart. You're almost like overly impressed like the first day you use a model, but then after like 2, 3 days, you remember, oh yeah, you see enough examples, you're like, oh yeah, it still kind of sucks though, So I need to, I don't get that intuition unless I kind of force myself to shift. So I'm using both. I'd be curious how you're. I currently am preferring Fable. Anything like design related, I still think it's better I really like it has some spark of just like creativity when we're planning or talking about kind of bigger ideas. I'm just like I get some spark from it that I don't really get from Soul. But I'm actually quite annoyed at Fable as like my data like it's like too smart when like often I'll sort of I'll say, hey, let's have a discussion about X, and I'll come back to it and it's like already written like a ton of code, and I'm like, whoa, like yeah, it just really wants to like jump in and write, and it'll even like have a little internal discussion with itself. It's almost like it doesn't like it kind of knows it's like smarter than me, like it doesn't really want my input. It's like kind of just like, "Ah, I'll make the decisions and just like go ahead." Whereas like Soul, I find just better as like my daily workhorse, and I never hit limits. One reason is I just hit my Fable limits too much. So like if
Yeah, I
I
feel
have to
like
ration it.
Anthropic has really taken a I mean they had the belt there for a while, and I feel like they've really
Hmm.
squandered that with the Fable rollout. I don't know how much that was under their control versus it wasn't under their control, but they've taken
Hmm.
me from somebody who was on a like Claude Max plan
Hmm.
and really wasn't using OpenAI tools anymore, and they've now shifted me into somebody who is on both and really
Hmm.
uses Soul or I actually use 5.5 for a lot of just like
Hmm.
basic stuff. I find I have gotten really sick of the Anthropic like so many metaphors in its it uses such flowery language. I spend all of this time with
Hmm.
the Anthropic models being like, please be concrete so that I can,
Hmm.
because I'm sitting there being like, I'm trying to understand what I think you're saying, but
Hmm.
it's like it's been dressed up in fancy words, and I find
Hmm.
five like if all I'm trying to do is rubber duck and get my thoughts organized, 5.5 is
Yeah.
smart enough. It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's I'm not gonna have to worry about session limits. Okay, cool. Like that's
Right.
gonna be the workhorse for that. But then yeah, I mean when I have something quite complicated and I want it to work well and I want it to be thorough, I kind of am saving Fable for that,
Yeah.
which I think speaks highly of it as a model.
Hmm.
And I'm like very surprised that Anthropic has like gotten me to that point based on where my usage pattern was
Right.
3 months ago, right?
Totally.
It
Yeah.
let OpenAI back in the game.
Right. I mean, I love the competition. For me as a user, it's like that's so great. I love that there's not like one. Yeah, at some point Google will probably get back in the game. They were sort of back in it. They seem to have lost momentum, but you know maybe
It's
they'll
really
come back.
quiet over
But
there. It's really
yeah,
quiet.
but the
Yeah.
Chinese models like what GLM 5.2 and Kimi, I mean, those are like they're not as behind as I thought. I thought it was gonna be more like 12 months behind, and it's like well they're GLM 5.2 is like pretty
Do you ever
good.
use them?
I've tried to do some evals in our product, and one issue I've run, not, no, not really. I'm glad they exist. I am model curious, I guess, about them. That when I see like Clairvaux, it's like I switched my Claude code to GLM 5.2, and I couldn't really notice too much of a difference, and it was like this amount, it's a huge amount cheaper. It's like that's very cool. Just kind of means I think it'd be harder for folks to get much pricing power. But when I tried them on our product internally, they didn't perform that well. And I think it's partly because we made the decision to build around the Claude Agent SDK. And so there's this question about like model and harness and like how well those go together. When I started building this product, like there wasn't, I don't think Pi existed as a harness. Maybe OpenCode did. I could have picked that one, but like, I just sort of I built around Anthropic's harness. And so now what I find is I could eval Anthropic's models, but when I did try some like OpenRouter makes it very easy to just like with a string change route it to whichever model you want. And for these open weights ones, there's all sorts of providers. You could use a US based provider that has zero data retention. You're not sending your data to China or anything like that. So you actually can really control where the inference is. But I found that they weren't that much cheaper. I think because they were like probably taking longer than Opus or something to solve problems. I need to do bigger digging on it, but no, not really.
Yeah, I have a product that does like zoning analysis for a couple of local cities, and I have been powering it with Opus 4.8, and it the any issues that I'm seeing in performance right now is normally attached. It's been really fun to learn about how city codes work and what they do and what they don't do. But there are these gray areas where things are in the heads of the staff, and those tend to be when I'm getting complaints right now. Those are the things, and it's not a model quality issue. So I haven't looked at what it would look like to change it. But it's been probably about 3 or 4 months that or maybe longer than that, that it's been kind of on that same one. And the internet vibes would say that GLM 5.2 is better than Opus 4.8. And so I'm kind of like, huh, maybe I should make the time to see, because it would definitely drop the price, like pretty significantly, which is obviously worth doing. So,
Yeah, I mean, to me, what's mainly useful about it, it's like it's never like a near-term priority for me because our costs. I mean, we're spending what 2-3 thousand a month, I think, on AI tokens for customers, but like that's not enough that that's my primary focus, right? Like all like getting product market fit is like the whole game, and so initially I'm just going to reach for whatever smartest model is to, I can use to like de-risk, am I actually building something people want? But it's
yeah,
nice to know that if I get to the point where I'm like optimizing margins is, that like, these much cheaper models are available for anything that's like, where like, pretty good, a good enough model, but like way cheaper exists. And so I think that's just the natural course that like companies go through. In the beginning, you mostly don't want to care that much about margins as long as but you do care about having an eventual path to like good unit economics. And so, Amazon didn't really become profitable till what, like 2006 or seven. Like AWS was, pretty big before Amazon became profitable. And it's important that they had a path to get there.
yeah,
I think the worries with the big labs is like it's not totally clear, like depending how things play out, like they may or may not have a path to sort of get to real profitability. But in the beginning, you really want to care. You want to care about value and are you solving people's real problems and growth, top of funnel and just like
totally.
top line revenue growth is way more important in the beginning than margins. But one thing I've been, I actually opened up Cursor today. I haven't, I turned off Cursor a while ago. But it was like, it's kind of like the gateway drug for me into this world, like VS Code. Okay, cool. Cursor's basically the same. I can like have all my extensions work, but now I get like little AI chats. So kind of in the early days, this is like before agents worked at all. It was just like little AI chat because the alternative at the time was I was like using ChatGPT or later Claude and like pasting back and forth between VS Code. So I started out with Cursor, eventually turned off them. Now I'm mostly using Conductor, Claude Code, or Codex directly. But it was interesting, like the new Cursor, I opened it up and it looks a lot like Conductor. It's like completely different. Like it's basically like the top level thing is agents. It's like an
Yeah,
agent orchestrator. There's of course cloud remote agents. There's like local stuff going on. And then the editor is sort of like still there. You can kind of like open the editor, but it's like kind of receded into the background.
sure.
And I think there's something interesting about this that like the product architectures have, I think, kind of necessarily been evolving a lot as the models have gotten better because you have sort of the reasoning part of the model and then everything else is sort of complementing it. But if you make the reasoning like much better and agents start to work and they start to work for longer and now you can run them in parallel and now you want them remote, now you want them on your phone, like you have to evolve the whole sort of product around it. So yeah, it's interesting to yeah, see kind of like where are we going to be in like a year or two?
Have you seen Buzz?
No, so, what is that? I heard that. I don't know what that is.
It's here, I'll pop it up. I don't think I have it on this computer right
I
now.
feel like my wife mentioned it, but I forgot what it is.
It's it's
Hmm.
basically Conductor with your friend. It's Conductor and Slack had a baby.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, cool.
It's actually, we should see if Erica or someone from her team would like to come and chit chat a little bit about it. But yeah, it seems super cool. I am either in a company that is large enough that I don't get to choose
Hmm.
what I am using, or I am by myself, so I don't like multiplayer mode. It's just me. Conductor's perfect for this. But I did it
Hmm.
caught my eye for sure. I was like, oh, this is neat, right? Like,
That's a startup or an open source project or something? What is?
it's coming out of Square.
Oh, it's Square. Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it looks interesting. It definitely. I tweeted at someone, I forget who recently, like how long until Conductor starts allowing people in the way that like, like it's Conductor is
Hmm.
clearly going to end up. It's competing with Slack
Hmm.
effectively for my typing time and my talking time, right?
Yeah, well, Charlie, he did a talk at the Edge World's Fair and he demoed multiplayer, and but I had like mixed feelings about it because like he was showing how Conductor was using Conductor, and so they had sort of multiplayer over on the left, and he could sort of see workspaces that his teammates were working on and go in and sort of chat. But yeah, that's a good example of like another sort of pressure on the product architecture is like, none of this stuff is multiplayer really. And Slack has a lot of sort of center of gravity network effects around, places that we talk about work. So yeah, everyone's sort of fighting over like, who's the gravity? Where do you start? And, who's delegating work to who. That's cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah.
My current my current way of working in conductors changed a little bit, maybe just in the last week or two, because they have a way you can pin a workspace now. And so now what I'm doing is I basically like, I think of them almost just like work streams. I guess they call them workspaces, but like it's just some workspace for a theme. Like right now, I have one for like chat persistence, which is like an area I'm working on, or like I have one thread on design where I'm using Fable. And I think what's happened is partly like compacting got solved. Like before compact, like only in the last like couple of OpenAI model versions, I'm like, oh, they solved compacting. Like I just don't have to care about it anymore. Like I used to be so frustrated. I'd be in some long thing, and then right in the middle of a task, you see that compacting thing. You're like, oh crap! Like it's gonna wait, a couple minutes. It's gonna be like drunk and dumb after it's done. So I had to kind of like manage threads. But now that I don't care about compacting, I just create these like long running forever work streams that just go until I don't need them anymore. And that sits above like the top level thing is not a work tree for me anymore because I'm going to create multiple of those, multiple PRs. It's not a chat because sometimes I have multiple chats and tabs within one of those. So it's weird. It's like the top level thing keeps getting like larger and larger that encompass things kind of below it.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest in my work, I have gotten to chat thread overload where I have so about a month ago I was like more, and now I'm like I have too many. I can't keep them open. Like it's starting to stress me out again. I need to like for my own sanity and like to get things done to like peel them back. But I definitely find myself opening multiple chats in the same thread, and it's nice to have one on the side to be able to ask questions because sometimes you want the main one working, but you like, when I'm really doing a lot of this, I'm learning a lot as I go. That's actually it continues to be my favorite thing about this is how much you can learn and how many, just to be able to be like, how does this technology actually work? When you mean this, what do you mean? Anyway, be really interesting.
Totally.
Really interesting.
Your video's frozen for me. I don't know if that's true for others. I mean, you're in a plausible like thinking pose. So it
Hopefully it'll
works.
come back.
I don't know if you, yeah.
Riverside is supposed to fix it, but we'll see. We'll see how that
Okay,
goes.
cool. You want to talk about slop-free zones? I think
Yeah, let's do slap free
came up.
zones. Yeah.
Yeah, how are you kind of thinking about slop? How do we keep the slop at bay? Do we care? Like how do we what should we do about slop in our code bases?
Well, I definitely have noticed that the more AI native teams, I will say Conductor seems to be not like this, but a lot of the AI native teams that I have seen, you can kind of tell that they're prioritizing speed over finish. And it's just made me kind of want to go in the opposite direction. I ended up, I was using Claude Code in the terminal the other day and have ended up with this bug where certain things show up as like white on white. Like I literally can't read it. Obviously the Claude Code team is pretty good. Regressions can happen anywhere. Like I certainly have shipped some noticeable bugs before, but this one was bad, right? Like it's like it made the product completely unusable for me. And it just has made me, I think craft is one of the ways that you like differentiate yourself. So it has made me interested in how you prevent that from happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like this term slop-free zones. I don't know where it came from, but I like kind of because it adds the idea of a zone because like defining slop is not super clear. There's a funny diagram that I think it's just some meme I saw online of like trying to define slop where it's basically like, is it slop? And when you do it, when you use like, did AI do it? Yes. Okay. If you made it, then it's slop. But if I did it, then it's like human, augmentation or something. Like we tend to sort of judge our own creations sort of more positively than if someone else did the exact same thing. So slop's a little bit hard to define, but I like this idea of like not treating it as like this binary, but like the idea of zones. Where when I think about my code base, I tend to use mono repos like much more than I did before. Even when a project starts out and it's just me. Before there's anybody else involved, I end up with these like mono repos that have quite they usually have like an app where like that's where the auth layer is and the database, like a lot of stuff lives on the app layer, but then the more I can sort of factor out packages that have like very clear boundaries and scopes and purposes, I start doing that probably earlier than I otherwise would, just because like managing agents across a code base gets like when things are sort of intermingled, like I'm getting conflicts, like it's annoying. And so I like this idea of like zones where like for me, like the database schema is a very clear one where anytime I see a diff that touches the schema, I immediately like I want to see that file. Like that's like there's got to be like human review on the schema. Whereas like other areas, like maybe just the zone idea, it's like not all things have equal risk. And so sort of identifying like these are the risky parts of the code base where I want to have like high standards, probably like humans reviewing it, but then other areas I can be a little bit looser and faster, I guess. Is a nice idea, I think.
Yeah, two things in there that makes me think of. One is I find that when somebody sends me a file as context that is explicitly for me to put into my AI, it doesn't bother me that much. But I do get sometimes these messages from people that are like more than I'm plausibly going to read in a Slack message that are obviously AI written, and that is it's like such a bad look, right? It's like people should not do that. And I continue to think it's like it's so easy to just boil that down into 3 bullet points. If you send me 3 bullet points, I'm probably even if I can smell a little AI on it, I'm not going to be that annoyed. But when it's like 10 paragraphs, I'm gonna be like, all right, man, but like you're clearly wasting my time. But I'm really interested in this when it starts to hit like product finish and because that's obviously a different situation, right? Because I think everybody should go ahead and experiment, use these tools and learn and whatever. And then I'm noticing in some of the apps that I'm using that it's like pretty clear that they're rushing through it, and it's impacting the user experience on that for me. And to see places that I really respect, I have a ton of respect for Anthropic, but I see that in some of the, like they did
Oh yeah.
the Claude app. I was in it recently. I was like, whoa, it's a little bit jarring, right? To kind of have an app that's that prominent and used by that many people that has that many rough edges. So anyway, it's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
yeah.
yeah, Anthropic, I mean, hey, a great company, great, love their models, but yeah, it's the buggiest like software I've ever used in my life, I think. And it's not even new. Like, I mean, since just Claude Code was always very buggy and flickery and just like, and so yeah, when they kind of say, hey, AI writes all of our code and like, trying to be sort of a
We can tell.
like model, yeah, like, oh, okay, well, maybe you should like rate it in a little bit. But I mean, I also imagine, like the labs, like they just work all the time. I mean, they're in a knife fight and, there's a lot of pressure. So like, it's hard to say whether it's AI or just other, there's always this like desire to move fast. But yeah, certainly like product quality does not seem to be as high a priority over there right now.
Totally, totally. Did you
There's one,
read?
you mentioned the law, or go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, did you read that Dan Liu test or a piece on testing about fuzzing? I'll send this one to you. We'll talk about it in a future episode. But it was a method of testing that I had never heard of before. That it was really interesting. I do think that this is going to be a place where it's now easy to create. It's hard to create well, right? So like,
Yeah.
you need to be trying out these things that allow you to have like totally bug free, totally tight user experiences.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was really good. Stop provoking.
Yeah, I have one tip. I was sort of thinking about like why like code review has gotten easier for me, and that's why my PRs are now kind of bigger. Because I've always been the bottleneck, kind of, and I think I always will be the bottleneck. And so, it was never hard to generate a lot of code. It was hard to generate like good mergeable code. And so I was always just like spending time reviewing. I did one of the easiest things I've done recently that has really helped, and I did this a couple weeks ago, was I think it's just in my agents MD somewhere. It's like a very short line, but I basically just say, anytime you think you're done, you need to first go run the /simplify skill. And then I want you to do a code, like ask a sub agent to do a code review and fix all the findings that it has. And so it makes it go longer. So my sessions are slower now. And so often I have like 3 or 4 going at once because they now take, it might take 20 minutes, and sometimes they'll go through multiple rounds. But the result is before I see anything as a human, the quality has gone up a lot. So I think, and then partly I think they're just better at instruction following. The simplify Claude Code has a /simplify skill. I think Codex doesn't, but I like found this. I try to find like the source of that one. I like made it sort of agnostic, so both Codex and Claude can do it. But I found that like a lot of my code reviews, I'm just like they like to make sort of complicated code, and so I just was like over and over like simplify this, simplify that. So that was yeah. I think it somehow these things are like they're very good at generating, but we need to shift more of our focus, I think, to like yeah, verifying like quality, product quality. Like I think you're right. Just like I have one more. There's this you mentioned like these things are just so wordy, you know, like I'm kind of glad I'm not in a big company where I have to like read AI written PRDs or Slack messages. That would probably really annoy me. But they just like to write really long things. And there was let me see if I can share this. There was Paul Graham, he tweeted something like, what was this? It was like a month ago, where
Yeah,
he
this one
just
was good.
that was pretty good. He's just, like, how do you make your writing unsummarizable? Like remove so much fluff that like if you cut anything else, you're actually gonna like lose something important. And I think his writing tends to be pretty good. It's just like he likes to use kind of plain English words, not fancy. And he wanted to think about like you should write like you talk. And so I made a little skill just for myself. It's not like something to for others, but I just call it like PG compress, and it just like was inspired by that tweet where it's just sort of like take a writing like a piece of input, and I want you to like compress this prose as much as you possibly can until you basically can't take anything else out. So I'm like putting that in various things now that like I mean it's funny we're like using these models that I guess are incentivized to like generate lots of tokens, and then I'm like using like even more tokens to then like compress them back down. But there's something quite annoying about the length of writing.
I love it. Well, I mean, writing and then editing down, right? It's like
Yeah,
not exactly new, right?
totally. Maybe you want this kind of adversarial, like write the code, but then like have a different. You almost want like a different agent, not the one that wrote the code, but like a different one to like review it with fresh eyes. And with writing, maybe it's like you draft and then you have like edit down. So yeah, there's something about generating, verifying being like two sides of a coin, maybe.
Yeah. All right. I hear a crying baby. I gotta
All right,
go
man.
be a dad. All right, man. Good to see you.
See you.